We're 900 feet above sea level on the edge of Dartmoor this week to explore one of Devon's many mineral tramways. There's not much left up here of the Lee Moor tramway, but 20 miles away, in a shed at the South Devon Railway at Buckfast Lee, you can find a steam engine dating from 1899 and a wagon from the tramway. When extraction began up here in 1835, the only way to get the china clay to the processing plants and the docks in Plymouth was by pack horse. The quarry owner, Lord Morley, thought there had to be a better way, and the answer lay a few miles away down in the Plym Valley, where a tramway had been laid to connect Princetown to the coast. In the 1850s, a scheme to convert part of this to a broad-gauge passenger line was proposed, and the promoters needed Lord Morley's support, and this he gave on condition they built a branch line between Lee Moor and Plym Bridge. To get to the sea from there, the china clay wagons would use a southern section of the Princetown tramway, whose rails were 4 foot 6 inches apart. So that was the chosen gauge for the Lee Moor tramway when work started here in 1853. It ran down this valley at Toricombe and was opened a year later, but the workmanship was so bad that it wasn't safe to run trains on. The tramway had to be rebuilt on a different alignment and finally opened in September 1858. It passed through Lee Moor village, along here towards Chorley Town and Watter. This section of the tramway closed in 1910, but some of the track still remains. In the beginning, the tramway was horse-drawn, except for 2 inclines, and here is the first of those inclines just below Lee Moor village. It was 654 metres long and had a gradient of 1 in 7. Trucks descended under their own weight, while those going up the slope were hauled by cables, and you can see the remains of the cable today. There was a passing loop in the middle, and at the top of the incline was an observation tower. Beyond that, a building that housed the winding drum and the engine to work the cables. Further down the incline, some rails are still in place alongside the slurry pipes which in the end replaced the tramway starting in the 1920s. This incline up to Lee Moor village closed in 1936. In 1899, 2 steam locomotives were ordered from the engineering firm Peckett's to replace the horses, and this is the engine house where they were stored and repaired. To cope with the heavier steam engines, the original granite supports like this one had to be replaced with wooden sleepers. The new locomotives worked on the flat section of line from the engine house towards the top of the second incline at Cann Woods. Here we can see the gate posts for the level crossing where the Lee Moor tramway went over the Plympton to Shawprior Road at Whitegates, quite near to Brixton Barton. And this is where the second incline was. It descended 330 feet towards Plym Bridge. It was 1.25 miles long and had a gradient of 1 in 11. This is the bridge that carried the china clay wagons on the tramway over the road near the National Trust car park at Plymbridge Woods. And some of the stone buildings here were probably stables for the horses that hauled trains from here down to the docks in Plymouth, right up to the end of operation in 1960. The track bed now follows the cycleway towards Plymouth for a short way. The Lee Moor tramway closed at the outbreak of the Second World War, but it reopened shortly afterwards to transport naval stores that were being moved from the Royal Dockyard to Lee Moor village for safekeeping. The line reopened properly in October 1945, but didn't last long, closing again 2 years later. At this point, the Lee Moor tramway crossed the Great Western Line between Plymouth and Tavistock, now the Plym Valley Railway. The only section that remained in use after 1947 was over this bridge, near to Longbridge Road at Marsh Mills. After crossing the river, the line turns south along what's now Embankment Road towards Lera. And from this bridge on Embankment Road we can see where the horse-drawn tramway crossed the main line. The last ever crossing was made in August 1960 and the tramway was dismantled a year later.